This recording explains to you how to estimate the mean from a grouped frequency table, a typical GCSE question worth 3 marks. When working with statistics, it's always a good idea to check what the data is telling you, because it's telling you a story. So here, what's the scenario? The scenario is about, you're given a table about the earning of 20 people who work in a shop, and you can see from the table that one person earns between 150 and 250 pounds, and the ones who are most paid, probably the owners of the shop, then earns between 550 and 650. So this gives you an idea of what numbers you're working with. You are asked to estimate the mean weekly earning from this table. So this means that you know already the mean is going to be one of the 3 averages, so it's going to be a number that represents this earning. So if the least paid person is between 150 and 250 pounds per week, and the most paid person is between 550 and 650, you already know that the result is going to be within the range of the table. So always have that at the back of your mind. And then you can start the process. So several steps are required to complete this work. Number 1, you're going to need to add 2 columns. The first column is going to be the midpoint. The midpoint of what? The midpoint of each interval within the earning columns. So here the interval is 150 to 250, so the midpoint would be right in the middle. This is 200. If you're unsure about how to calculate the midpoint, what you can always do to do the midpoint is you add the 2 limits, so 150 plus 250, and then you divide that by 2. So that would be 400 divided by 2 is 200. So if you can do it in your head, great. If you can't, then remember, you just have to add the 2 limits and then divide by 2. And you keep doing that until you have completed the column. 250 to 350, the midpoint is 300. 350 to 450, the midpoint is 400. Then 500 and 600. The second column is going to contain the product of the frequency times the midpoint. The frequency is the second column, and you're going to multiply that by the midpoint. 1 times 200 is 200. Generally, more often than not, this is a calculator question, because you're going to need to do lots of calculations. However, every now and then, and recently it's been the case, it's come up into the non-calculator question. This is the case here, as this is a paper 1 question. Well, if that's the case, the numbers are going to be easy. So 11 times 300, 11 times 3 is 3300. 5 times 400, it's going to be 2000. 0 times, not bothering that 0, 3 times 600 is going to be 1800. Once you have done that, you are going to do the total from the frequency times midpoint columns. So the last column, you need to add that up, and you're going to need to do the total of the frequency column. So frequency times midpoint, 200 plus 1800 is 2000, plus 2000, 4000, 4000 plus 3300, 7300. Then the frequency column, 1 plus 11 is 12, plus 5 is 18, plus 3 17, plus 3 is 20, which is verified. Generally, this is part of the question. They told you there are 20 people. And then the final stage will be to do the frequency times the midpoint column, so that number here, and you're going to divide it by the total frequency. You always divide by the total frequency. So I'm going to do 7,300 divided by 20. And if it's a calculator, you pick up your calculator. If it's not, I'm going to divide the top and the bottom by 10, and your final answer, 730 divided by 2, is going to be 365. And if you need to write down your division, then you do so. And that is 3 marks. Now, let's do a quick sanity check because it's generally very easy to see if something has been done incorrectly. The result here, so the mean you have calculated, is 365. Does it make sense in the context of that question? Well, 365 would be around here in the column, so right in the middle, not quite in the middle, but within, the data range. So does it make sense? Yes, it does. You can be fairly satisfied that at least the process is correct. Here's a summary again of the steps for this process. Number 1, you add a column that you complete with a midpoint. Number 2, you need to add a second column for the frequency times midpoint. Number 3, you do a total of this frequency times midpoint column. And number 4, you work with the total frequency. Note that you don't ever add the midpoints together. Never. The only thing you use the midpoint for is to do your frequency times midpoint. And then finally, step 5 is when you do your calculation. It's going to be your total of the frequency times midpoint column divided by the total frequency. Now it's time for you to have a go. So here's a question. Again, it's an Edexcel question. Try this, pause the video, and then the answer is on the next slide. Now pause the video. And the answer to this question is 21.9 centimeters. Let's do a sanity check. It's about the length of feet for 40 adults. These feet measure between 16 and 26 centimeters. Your answer is 21.9, which is roughly in the middle of the table. That looks reasonable. And that's another 3 marks. Another 2 questions for you to try. Both of them are Edexcel GCSE exams questions from recent years. This time, the steps have been removed from the slides. Pause the video and have a go. The answers are coming up now. Check that you have the same results, and if so, that's another 3 marks for you on an exam paper. It's now time for you to find some questions either online, on past papers, on Colbert Maths or Sparks or whichever site you would like to use to revise, and make sure that you remember this process. Good work!